Well, welcome back, everyone. It's 12:30 Central Time, so it's time for our next session, our next panel session in the Ada Kepanu ECEDHA Town Hall. To those of you who have been with us for the last couple of sessions, we really appreciate your staying in, maybe doing some networking, for sharing your thoughts and questions in the chat. We welcome you to interact with our panel via the chat, raise your hand. We really would like this to be an interactive session. We're very grateful to ECEDHA for doing this panel with us. We've got a great partnership between HKN and ECEDHA. Serving the engineering education community is a shared mission that we have. Our commitment to engineering education, to students, to our departments, to making all of the process stronger, and how we can, as Ada Kepanu chapters and EC departments, how we can improve those experiences on campus and for the benefit of engineering education around the globe. So again, with that shared mission, we're really grateful to be working with ECEDHA. And thanks so much. Well, today for this session 3, which is titled The Peer-to-Peer Community, How an HKN chapter can enrich that community on your campus. I'm a Theta, so I'm always happy to welcome Gamma Theta to the table. And Steve's going to introduce his panel. But thank you so much, Dr. Watkins. I'm going to turn this over to you and your panel for the next discussion.
All right, thank you very much, Nancy. Certainly appreciate all that you do for HKN and your passion for our community. Welcome, everyone. I'm certainly glad to be here and having the opportunity to highlight some of the good things about HKN and how it impacts different departments across the world. I've had a privilege of being in part of HKN in several capacities, both as a student, as an officer, and then serving on the board as well, and then as being a faculty advisor to my actually home Gamma Theta chapter. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that. What we're talking about in this particular session, I think, is a real important aspect of what HKN can provide for a department. And that has to do with how the students can really take ownership of their education and in really establishing a community where they're benefiting their social life, their technical education, their service activities, all those sorts of things where students can really have that structure where they can self-organize and contribute to the mission of the department. And I think they can really have a strong role to play in enhancing that student life and providing all sorts of peer-to-peer activities with things. In today's panel, I'm going to be highlighting several chapters that are doing some really great things in their chapter, and every chapter doesn't have to be the same. You really can tailor what goes on in your chapter of what the needs are there. Some of the things that these chapters are going to be talking about will be community spaces they have. They call them different things, but it's really a space they can have to conduct their activities, often provided by the department. Talking about some of the networking things they do between faculty and students, as well as students to students, and even faculty to alumni. And talking about some of the social activities they have, and there's lots more that they can do. Each of these chapters do very, very well in contributing to their home community. They have won awards. I have the Key Chapter logo here. These chapters have won the Key Chapter Award. They've won our Outstanding Chapter Award. So they really have a lot to share in terms of what can be replicated in different places across the world through HKN. So let me introduce my panelists and their chapter. My first panelist is Dr. Jennifer Marley. She is faculty advisor at the Mu chapter, that is Valparaiso University. This is one of our newer chapters in HKN, only about 3 years old, something like that. We have Alan Chen, who is a student at the Beta chapter at Purdue University. He is going to be talking about third chapter activities, one of our older chapters in HKN. He currently serves as vice president of that chapter. We have Matthew Gola from the Xi chapter, which is the University of Texas at Austin. He is currently vice president, but he's served in several other officer positions as well, recording secretary, president, and so forth. So he can't get enough of HKN. Hopefully he can share that for us. And finally, we have Aaron Burke, who's representing the Gamma Theta chapter here at Missouri S&T. and he's done a number of roles in our student organizations, and this year he's our pledge chair, which is certainly an important aspect of things. So what I'm going to do as we go through this, we're going to use the first part of our panel discussion, where each of our panelists will describe some of their signature activities. They'll be talking about how they conduct these activities and how it really contributes to making their chapter successful and helping the department achieve their mission and helping the students both in HKN and outside of HKN and the student body. So with that introduction, let me jump into the Valpo chapter. Dr. Marley is actually an awardee of HKN. Just this last year, she won our prestigious HKN McDonald Teaching Award. So we congratulate her on that, and very glad that she's a faculty at one of our newer chapters. So Dr. Marley, please tell us a little bit about what goes on at your chapter.
Sure, and thank you so much for that great introduction. I'm Jenny Marley. My first experience with ECEDHA Kappa Nu was with the Beta ECEDHA chapter. So I was inducted as a student into North Carolina State University's chapter. And now I get the fun experience of being on the other side of that, being the faculty advisor for the Mu chapter at Valpo, as has been mentioned. And one of the things that I will highlight here, or all of the things that I'll highlight here, I should note have really been ideas generated and planned by the students. So although I am presenting, my job is really just to kind of help make these things happen and maybe brainstorm a little bit. But we've done some really fun events over the past few years. We are a newer chapter, starting in 2018. And one of the things that I think makes us a little different than other student organizations is really what we've been able to build in terms of collaboration among the faculty and the students. So we have faculty members as well with our students. And the way that we kind of do our year is we start the year, or we start each semester with just a fun game night. So faculty come, students come. It's a great way to kind of break the ice. We invite new potential members just to kind of see, you know, who's in HKN, what do we do? And that can be, we've done things like, we've played Mafia when we were in person. We've played all sorts of board games. We do cards, and we just kind of set it up as a fun. We take one of the big classrooms. Sometimes we put on a movie. Sometimes we have snacks, and it's just kind of a casual evening. And for the faculty and the students, I think it's fun to just hang out outside of class. There's no stress of classes with it. And it's been really fun to get to know students outside of class. And I think the students really enjoy getting to know each other as well. That's kind of our first event for each semester. Then we normally do one sort of fun social event in between that and induction, or sometimes right after induction. And those, we've done a couple different things. So you'll see the picture here. We did a chili cook-off. One of the faculty shown there is very into making chili. And so the students challenged him into a tasting contest. And so people got to come experience that. And again, kind of a casual evening of hanging out and doing something that we all enjoy. Some of these events have been, we did last December, a gingerbread house making contest where people came and decorated gingerbread houses, and we put on different movies there. The biggest event, I think, or the most popular that has been, is we do laser tag at a local facility. So it's an indoor combat laser tag. And no, it is not just students versus faculty. We have to split that up. So it's not just all of the students against us. But again, it's just really fun. We just go spend an evening. We do several rounds of it and mix up the teams. And inevitably, the students do much, much, much better than we do. But it's just a really great evening to get to know each other.
I imagine that's really popular. They have students shooting their professors.
Exactly, right? What could possibly be better then? But it's a really, really fun event. And the students also recover much more quickly than we do, which feels, I don't know why that could possibly be, but that's been a really fun event. And then throughout the semester, we do speaker series. So every month we host, whether it's professors or whether it's alumni, and not necessarily HKN alumni, but students who want to come and give back and just kind of share us about, what do you wish you had known? So they're on a variety of topics. They could be a technical talk of what do you do now? They could be just life advice for what did you learn when you left Valpo that might be useful to other students. And likewise with that, the faculty who speak, we really ask the students, what do you want to know about? Do you want to know about grad school? Do you want to know about a particular topic? And the students really give us that feedback as far as what are you genuinely interested in learning? And those are kind of our, I would say, overview of the events that we do throughout the year.
All right, well, thank you very much. I wanted to note that your chapter has just won an Outstanding Chapter Award, and to do that in just the first few years of operation is quite notable, I think. And I think some of the activities you talked about shows why you've done that. I would like to ask you a specific question about what value you think HKN brings to the entire department student body, not just the students. And you might clarify a little bit which of those activities were just for HKN members and which one were all of your students there at Valpo.
Sure. So some of the events, for example, the laser tag, are open only to HKN members, but we also did that joint with our IEEE chapter. So that opened it up a little bit. But a lot of like the speaker series, for example, those are open to anyone. And I think as much as we can, we really try to encourage anybody to be involved in it. What I think we really contribute is, especially now when it's really hard to build that community and we're not all in person all the time, we really try to look for opportunities to do that. So we've done virtual game nights over Zoom. And last semester, the chapter identified, I don't feel like the freshman students really got the same experience to get to know us and feel welcomed in our department as much, strictly because we were not in person the entire time, or at least students can't hang out as much in our building. And so they organized a socially distanced hide and go seek, particularly geared towards those first year students who had just joined us and everything that comes with it. So I think what makes this organization different is that they look for those opportunities and identify, how can we welcome everybody in those events?
Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to go through each of our panelists and they're going to have a chance to tell about things. But again, feel free to put your questions in chat. And then in the last part of the meeting, we'll open it up for those questions as well as any questions you come up with as we go along. So we'll go to our next presenter on our panel. That's Chen. He's a PhD student for the Beta chapter at Purdue University. And I think he's got a lot to share there. Again, one of our oldest chapters and one of our most active chapters. They've got a whole host of awards they can point to for where they've been effective. So Alan, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Steve, for the introduction. So hi, I'm Chen. As Steve said, I'm a graduate student from the Purdue HKN Beta chapter. So we do a lot of activities, but the main thing I want to highlight today is our Hkn Lounge. So our Hkn Lounge is in the electrical engineering building, which is a very, very convenient location for the EC community. And we have been operating this lounge for several decades now. But there's two main parts to the lounge. So the first part is a cafe style thing where we sell very affordable items such as coffee, beverages, snacks, donuts, bagels, and that kind of stuff. And it is open to everyone inside the Purdue community, not restricted just to ECE. And our second part is a safe space in the lounge where you can see over here on the picture on the right, and also my background on my Zoom right now. So we have lots of chairs and sofas, and that's a place for people around on campus to gather and talk to network with each other. So we have students, professors, and even other students from other departments to gather. And it's a very informal space where people can come together and talk about anything they want. We often have different professors come here and talk to their students on a very informal basis. And relating to that to the first part, so the first part where we sell a very affordable items such as that is a way to encourage people to stay inside of the lounge to network with other people.
Are there other social activities you do through the lounge or other events?
So, okay. So each week we have a social activity such as game nights or things. And on a non-COVID year, which unfortunately this past year the lounge has been closed because of restrictions by the university where we can't have very many in-person events. But before that, every week we have a social event on Friday evenings where we gather at the lounge and we typically do a different activity each week. So on some weeks we would have a game night or some sort of board game night, and sometimes we have movie nights there as well. And another thing we do in the lounge is about every month we have invite some company to come to a lounge to talk about what their company does and to network. And what they typically do is they sponsor an event called a bagel NAND donut day. So the company pays for bagels and some donuts, and each person who comes talks to the company can obtain a bagel or a donut, but not inclusive. So that's why it's a NAND. So we have bagel and NAND donut day, and people come there and talk to these companies who may be recruiting or maybe just sharing some very valuable technical information. So our lounge is a very great space to do a variety of activities such as that.
One thing I think is very interesting about your chapter is just how involved your graduate students are, and you're a graduate student as well. Can you comment on that? Because many of the chapters are mainly undergraduate.
Yeah, so
I think you created this culture where the graduate students start becoming part of what goes on in HKN.
Yeah, so I think our distribution of graduate to undergrad students is about 50-50, and it varies year to year. So a very the thing about that is with such a very strong presence of graduate students, the undergrad students in HKN or the undergrad students who want to join HKN, they have a sense of support from the entire EC department, as a lot of graduate students are teaching assistants, and these undergraduate students recognize them from those positions. And with being someone you recognize and being in that community will likely make someone want to join that community as well. So that's also one of the ways how we attract students who join our society.
Okay. Also, I had a question. You got your undergraduate at the University of Missouri, I believe.
Yes, that is correct.
So you moved to Purdue for your graduate program, and that's where I understand you actually became a member of HKN. How did HKN help you as kind of integrating into the community at Purdue?
Yeah, so since I went to a different university from between undergrad and graduate school, when I first came to Purdue, I did not know a single person here. So having I found out about HKN through one of their recruiting sessions, and I really thought this would be a great opportunity to get to know a lot of people inside the community, especially in ECE. And that really helped me get comfortable starting anew in a new place, since I've spent almost all my life in Missouri before this. And that really helped me have a good start towards my graduate career.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good to hear that. Nancy put something really interesting in the chat window, that the Beta Chapter Lounge is rated 4.8 on Google. So it truly is legendary, as Nancy mentioned there. So that's wonderful that HKN has that prominence there in the group. Well, let's move on to our next panelist, talking a little bit about his university, and that's Matthew Gola. Matthew has served in many offices in the Psi chapter down there at the University of Texas at Austin, and he's going to tell us a little bit about some of their social activities and their community through HKN. Matthew, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins, for that introduction. I'm here mainly to talk about the Fireside Chats that we do, which is basically an hour discussion with a professor / faculty of our department, and sometimes they're known to run a bit long. In pre-COVID times, we had them at a local pizza place that was like a couple blocks from the engineering buildings. As you can see in the photo, with it's like kind of a sports bar as well. We just hang out in their party room and get to meet a professor in a very informal setting. We do try make a genuine effort to get professors from different areas of ECE. As we know, it's a very broad field, so it's very interesting to learn about other areas of ECE that you might not have taken classes in, because there's not enough time to take classes in every part. Usually it's these are kind of smaller events, I would say. It's like 20 to 30 people from the chapter with the professional one. And it's structured in a way that's like a question and answer. So we do have questions to fall back on, but sometimes the discussion just kind of flows on its own and we don't even need questions. One thing that I think is kind of nice about this event is that it's transitioned really well into the online setting. It works really well over Zoom because it kind of is just a meeting where most of the professors talking, but people can interject with questions or comments. The only downside is you do not get a pizza in the Zoom setting. I think common things that are discussed in these is usually we start with the biography of the professor, sort of like where they're from and how they ended up becoming a professor. And it's interesting to hear how many different ways there are to become a professor, whether it's through industry or just straight from grad school. As well, professors like to talk a lot about what courses they're teaching or they plan to teach and try to encourage students to take them. In fact, even one professor, he likes to ask all the students what they think about courses that are in his track in the ECE department. And sort of get their feedback in their review for him to mention. As well, another common topic is research interests, and sometimes professors are even looking for research assistants, and it's a good way to sort of spread the word that a professor is looking. And then also on a sort of a personal level, a lot of times you do get to learn about your professors, their hobbies or their interests outside of ECE. So we learned like about one professor who plays in a Greek folk band in locally, as well as it seems a lot of professors do enjoy traveling. So it's always fun to hear some traveling stories. I think the main benefits of these firesides is really getting to connect with your professors on a personal and professional level in a small setting. The UT Austin is a huge school, so your classes are pretty big. So sometimes it's hard to get to know your professors really well. And for the professors as well, a lot of times you can put a name to a face you might recognize that you might not have, because it's very hard to memorize everyone's name. And on a personal note, this is probably my favorite activity to do with HKN. It's just really enjoyable, and it's always a fun time. And we get to foster a sense of in the EC department between Eta Kappa Nu and the faculty. And then also I see you have peer advising, which is something we do every semester right around registration. It's basically just an event where we have HKN members assisting mostly lower division students like freshmen and sophomores in picking their classes. It can be kind of confusing with all the degree requirements and what you need to take and in what order you need to take them. So we kind of assist and give them thoughts on what they want to do and help them select their classes.
All right, well, great. Looks like you've got a lot going on there. I note from the visit I was able to come by. You actually had me in that fireside, so I certainly enjoyed the pizza. But I note that you do have a HKN IEEE office area that the department provides. Can you comment on how that area is used?
Well, the past year, not so much. It's been closed, but it is nice to have like a hangout spot, and we can store a lot of equipment and stuff on campus, and we have some memorabilia in there. And it is like a nice sort of base, and you can hang out between classes because it is in the engineering building. And there are other clubs, not just IEEE and BI. So you're constantly hanging around with other engineering students who are in orgs. It's like one of them actually is the IEEE robotics. So it's always kind of cool to see what they're building and are up to as well. And it's a nice place to just hang out and I guess informally network.
Oh, that's great. It's good that you have that that interaction place there. And I know it's just right off your main lobby of the building, so it's in a very prominent location.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
very convenient.
All right, then. Well, thank you for sharing about UT Austin. Well, let's move on now to my chapter. So, Aaron's under pressure now. He has to do a good job because I'm here with him. But he is our pledge chair this year in Gamma Theta, and he's been very involved in both IEEE as well as the HKN group here. So, Aaron, tell us a little about some of the things that we do here at Rolla.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Watkins. So, since everyone's been talking about their lounge, I figure might as well start there. But we, like these other HKN organizations, have a study space, laboratory space, and in it you can hang out like everyone else has said. It's got like a loungy area with tables and chairs to work on homework together. It's where we host a lot of our study sessions during a normal semester. A lot of that has been moved virtually, naturally. But even still, we would meet there to host technical workshops, study sessions, networking opportunities, and things of that nature. It's really a great place to spend between classes. You can hang out with other students, specifically upperclassmen. And that was kind of the nice thing about HCAN on our campus, is that it helps foster this feeling of transition, of the upperclassmen helping the underclassmen, who turn around and help the underclassmen after that. So I got a lot of help from the upperclassmen, and now it's my turn to kind of pass that back on. And so that's a really great opportunity, including in our laboratory up there. We've got things for soldering. We've got a drill press for making things, clamps, and all this kind of work equipment, so that our IEEE Region 5 organization can use that, but also some personal projects should the need arise. Especially the soldering things. There's a lot of students who learn a thing in their circuits classes and they'd like to try stuff out. And we have a station for that. We have an Arduino station for that. So we have a lot of really cool opportunities in our laboratory space as well. Kind of some of the things that we put on, like I mentioned, are those study sessions. And we do partner with IEEE in a lot of these. So IEEE might host the Circuits 1, Circuits 2 study session, which are kind of our introductory classes here at Missouri S&T. But HKN hosts the more complicated 3,000 or 4,000 level courses. You're looking at like electromagnetics, power system design, these kinds of classes that are necessary to be helped, but maybe don't have as much support because they're advanced topics, and the people who learn them turn around and graduate soon after. So that's a really great way that HCAN has been able to provide real value to our campus that goes beyond just like helping HCAN students with other HCAN students, but really helping the freshman students that are interested in ECE. We, of course, do service opportunities off campus, which I think is really cool. We have a city nearby, Newburgh, that we go to sometimes at the Newburgh Children's Museum and help facilitate anything they need there, as well as food drives and other things in the Raleigh community as well. So beyond just providing value to HKN students or to underclassmen, we do try to expand out and help the surrounding area.
You've kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I wanted you specifically address your work with IEEE and how HKN and IEEE kind of complement each other. Can you respond to that? How do these groups complement each other and what their activities are?
Yeah, so what's actually kind of cool about our university is that a lot of the people who are on the HKN officer team also are on the IEEE officer team. So they really work closely together to try to facilitate needs. And we do really well not to repeat things that each other are doing. So we really try to gel. So what that means is that HKN helps with advanced study sessions and IEEE helps with entry-level study sessions. And there is a lot of crossover of people who are in HKN that need some volunteer hours to meet pledging requirements or to maintain active membership status, will then volunteer at these IEEE organizations. So it's really, really great communication there. In addition, we put on technical workshops, some of which are basics, such as a soldering workshop or Arduino workshops. And IEEE can also hold those same study sessions or workshops of like MATLAB programming and things like that. And so we work together to make sure that we are providing a wide range of interests and of workshops, while also making sure that we're not duplicating each other's work and making it so that we're less effective overall. Those are kind of some of I like to think of IEEE as being front facing. They're the ones that actively recruit freshmen and get them involved on our campus, find them a community of close friends. And then it just so happens that the HKN members are also integrated in IEEE, who can help them with their studies and with their academics, and kind of foster the growth that once you have been successful in IEEE, HKN is there to kind of continue that success and continue that excellence. And so that's kind of how I see it is HKN is a little bit of that next step, but also we're on the same playing field. We work together so well, and we try to contribute to the same end goal, which is helping the ECE department and our community.
You do a great job. Certainly well appreciated there.
Yeah.
I will point out one thing, kind of an anecdote, how that chapters develop things over time. That drill press you see in the photo there that Aaron talked about was actually donated to the chapter by one of our emeritus professors. He was quite the woodworker, and he had lots of tools and things in his basement. And when he passed away, it was his choice that his tools which was a great big Craftsman cabinet of all sorts of tools and that drill press and some other things with the HKN. And that's the sort of thing that can really contribute over time, that you have that sort of involvement from faculty that care about what goes on. Yeah, Nancy posed a question there, kind of setting you up there in the chat. So how does your department chairs support your chapter? Aaron, you want to respond to that? I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, so and I didn't really talk about this too much in my discussion, but at Missouri S&T, we have a very active HKN and IEEE student branch, and part of that is facilitated by all of the professors and the department chair helping us with activities, helping us stay relevant, helping us bring in alumni, and it always feels like if we have a question or a concern, whether it is about meeting COVID guidelines and staying within kind of both the safety regulations that we want to follow for our own health and safety, but also providing the best experience for the ECE department. So I think we have a great connection, and I don't think we would be nearly as successful without the active involvement of all of our professors and our department chair, of course. So I'm all happy. I'm excited that we have that opportunity, because I don't think we would be half as good of a student branch as we are without their support.
Oh, good answer. I like that. I'll pose the same question to some of our other panelists as well. How does your department chairs assist in particular, or faculty assist in particular, even beyond just your faculty advisors? So Alan or Matthew, would you care to respond to that?
Sure, I can go ahead. So our department chair shows up at the lounge quite often before COVID times to get his breakfast and coffee. So and he also, when he does that, he stops by to talk to the students and asks them how their day is doing. And that really fosters a communication between the students and the faculty members. And also part of our requirement of joining HKN is to have a session with the department chair and for the students to meet with the department chair and talk about things, any questions or concerns they have with the ECE community in general.
Okay, Matthew, do you have any experiences you can relate with regard to interaction with faculty and the department chair in particular?
With our department chair specifically, she actually recently joined our school. So we had our president welcome her and sort of introduce HKN when she joined. And she joined kind of right before COVID, or March 2020 and COVID. So she has done a couple of virtual firesides with our group, which has been nice. It's been interesting to learn about her background. And we also have an event that we host for all EC students, mainly lower division, picking their technical core. And we had her give a kickoff speech for that, which was very nice.
I think it's really interesting that, the successful chapters we have highlighted here, you see the stories about how the department chair and the faculty actually take an active role in it, even just attending meetings and doing things. And I think that goes a long way towards having a successful chapter. Dr. Marley, would you like to respond? You're coming from a slightly different perspective, but you're an assistant professor in your department. So, you do have a chair that you need to have supporting what goes on. Can you comment about how your administration, department chair, or even the dean or whatever supports your work through HKN?
Sure, absolutely. So until a couple weeks ago, our department chair in the ECE department, Doug Tuga, was actually the co-faculty advisor of our chapter with me. He is now interim dean of our college, so we have a lot of support from not only the department chair, but the dean there. And he was actually our founding faculty advisor as well. So Professor Tuga is very, very active in our chapter. And even now, though I've taken over for this semester kind of the primary duties, he still regularly checks in and really does all that he can to attend our events and to help me plan and help support the chapter. So we have a lot of support. And then our dean before Professor Tuga was also a member and would come to induction and support us and help financially support some of our events as well. So we have a lot of support as well, and we're really grateful for it.
Well, thank you. I have a good question to ask the group, and that's something that I've kind of observed when freshmen and sophomores come into the department. Oftentimes they've never heard of HKN. Maybe they're not even familiar with the whole honor society concept. I'd like to ask that each of you, who encouraged you to accept your HKN invitation, and what were your reasons for doing so? And I think that will tell a lot about, why your chapters are successful. Who would like to respond?
I don't mind going first.
Okay, go ahead.
So I got involved in IEEE naturally, and so that was my first introduction to the electrical engineering department as a whole. And like I mentioned before, a lot of the officer team for one organization often worked with the other. Maybe not concurrent officers, but definitely they would alternate between semesters, whether they were on the IEEE officer team or the HKN. And a lot of people I really admired and looked up to for their intelligence and how they carried themselves and their just professional attitude were HKN members. And so when I was introduced to them, I was introduced to them as role models and as people to look up to. And so that was a really important thing for me. And so when I was working through my classes and doing my stuff and getting my good grades, I didn't see it as like, okay, eventually I'll be an HKN member. But when I got that invitation, it wasn't even a question of, okay, am I going to do this? Is this worth my time? It was, oh, this is something I can do. This is something that is an option for me. I'm getting involved. I'm going to do this. So I would say that IEEE introduced me to HKN, but HKN stood kind of on its own and was awesome in its own right without needing the introduction.
Yeah. Alan, I think you might have an interesting story to tell, because you, with your undergraduate in comp sci, you weren't familiar with HKN from that point of view. How were you introduced to HKN, and what reasons did you have to accept that invitation?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the undergrad. So in undergrad, as Dr. Watkins said, I majored in computer science, and I was involved in a similar organization to HKN, which is called UPE, which is the computer science version of HN, I think. And when I came to Purdue, I believe that every graduate student is eligible to join HN. So when they reached out with an invite to all those graduate students, I immediately knew that this is something I'm going to be interested in, because I know how valuable this organization, or how being in an organization with like-minded people can be so valuable. And let's see. So I already alluded to during my talk earlier, but I really wanted to join because I didn't know anyone when I first came to Purdue, and I made my first few friends through the recruiting process through HKN. So that really is a draw for me on why I wanted to join HKN as well.
All right. Matthew, I'm going to turn the question around on you rather than asking you, why you joined HKN. Now, you've been recording secretary, you've been president, you're now vice president. What keeps you coming back to HKN and not saying, okay, I've done my dues and now I'm just going to be a member? What keeps you coming back?
Well, I really enjoy the community and the work being on the officer team. It is really enjoyable to see something you've sort of planned come to fruition, and then see the execution and the result, hopefully successful. As well, going into our club is fully virtual, and it has been this whole year in accordance with the university guidelines. So a couple of us, I'm not the only one who's been an officer for a few semesters, but a couple of us knew that we kind of needed to step up and sort of guide new officers and sort of mentor them in order to ensure that the chapter would thrive during the virtual times.
Now, I'll share an anecdote as well, kind of related to the benefit that HKN can give a faculty member. And Dr. Marley may have similar stories with this. But, very frequently we're asked to find, recommend people for maybe a scholarship or maybe a position or things like that. And I know for myself, I usually first think of, okay, who do I know in HKN that I could recommend for this? I know there's many cases where students have maybe got a scholarship, didn't realize it was because I knew they were in HKN and doing a good job. So it's kind of a side benefit you have there. Do you have anything similar, Dr. Marley, that you could share with us along that line?
Certainly. So I think one of the things that I've seen, maybe not directly tied to scholarships, but just in terms of getting to know students, is also seeing students grow in terms of leadership. Students who not only do I get to know you on a personal level, but now I get to see you, like you pointed out, step up and lead the chapter and just hear really creative ideas for, what kinds of events do you want? And again, really the chapter is not entirely self-sufficient, but almost to that point that they know how to run it and they come up with events. And one of the things, going back to the question about getting members, one of the things that I think really helps is we not only do kind of our icebreaker event at the early stage, but the invitations come from the students themselves. So a lot of the students will small enough school and a small enough department that the students know each other. And so they'll just kind of find potential members or the invited members in the hallway and just offer, would you like to know more about HKN, what we do? Because we are especially relatively new, especially the first couple semesters, that getting that word out. I think that also putting a friendly face to it also really helps us in terms of getting members that, oh, my friend is in it, or like you pointed out, this student that I look up to is in it. So it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I really picked up on something that you said there about HKN, kind of being self-organizing, kind of can take things on themselves. I know from a department chair's perspective, it's really nice to be able to maybe have a chapter leader come to me and ask about doing an event, or maybe I go to them and say, can you do something along this line? And maybe all I have to do is approve a room, or say, yeah, we can send out a listserv message or something like that. And then this just wonderful event just happens. And it doesn't take a whole lot of effort on the administration's part or even the faculty's part often, because the students are exercising those leadership skills and making things happen and doing a great job with it. Nancy, do we have any questions in the chat that you've been monitoring there that we should answer?
So no, people, please go ahead and put something in the chat. Haven't seen anything come in yet, but again, it always strikes me, Steve, and I'm always happy to talk EDICAP anew. Any of you know this, any of you know me, I can talk EDICAP anew all day long, and I'm always happy to do so, because I have to say the students always inspire me. So I think they do inspire up, right? So I think department chairs that I've talked to say, how it is so inspiring to see students take these kinds of roles. And like Jennifer said, to see people grow. EDICAP anew is a great place to try out these leadership skills and to try your meeting organization and event management and budgeting and project management, presentation skills. And even if you are not super successful, boy, what a great training ground for those leadership skills, right? And I can't tell you enough, when I talk to industry, the best prepared students that go into industry have these skills. If you're at a EDICAP and you're talking to, you're going to an interview, talk about what you've done in a leadership role. This is experience. You might not have gotten paid for it, but this is experience. Getting other volunteers to do things is tough. Organizing groups of students who don't have to do this is tough. You learn to speak up to your boss by speaking up to your department chair or talking to your professors in a certain way. These are such vital skills when you go into the world of work, or maybe you're going to become a teacher yourself. Teaching complex concepts to others is a great skill if you're teaching customers later, or people that don't understand the engineering project you're working on, or maybe yourself want to be a teacher. So we look at this as a great pathway to entrepreneurship, academia. We have that Pathways to Academia program, and Pathways to Industry, preparing you for industry. So I think there's been a couple questions come up here. So what type of engagement numbers have you had at your events? Are you getting great numbers? I know in COVID, it's been different. We've seen some programs have a greater number of attendees because everyone can attend virtually. What kind of engagement numbers are you seeing at your events?
I can talk a little bit about this. So we hosted a soldering workshop last semester, as I've mentioned, and we had 10 interested students come to the workshop and through hole solder with us, and it went excellent. We were able to socially distance, wear masks and things while doing the soldering, but also help them and teach them how to solder since they were freshmen and didn't know. And that's pretty typical for these COVID semesters. Anywhere from 8 to 12 is kind of like the actual top end of what we're even allowed to do if we do socially distanced gatherings. And then on the virtual side of things, when we have virtual networking or general meetings or things, we are seeing good attendance, but it's not necessarily the attendance we would see during a non-COVID semester. So numbers are down, but we're not worried about how down they are. This is just the way things are in this kind of time. So 8 to 12 is what we see in our events. People are still coming to volunteer at our things. The more safe we can make those volunteer opportunities, the more likely we see people. And that's when we get those 20, 30 plus attendees. When we have a volunteer session that requires you to be on campus or in person, we're seeing low numbers because it's hard to volunteer. It's hard to do it. So I would say good considering, but we're looking forward to future semesters when everything opens back up and we'll see those numbers surge again.
And to put some of the numbers that Aaron mentioned in perspective, usually we have on the order of 20 to 30 active members in the chapter at a time. So we're getting a pretty significant proportion of our HKN members at some of these events. When you account for people being on co-op or graduating or things like that. So our members tend to be very active. I suspect that's the case in some of the other chapters as well. Any of the others of our panel want to respond to this question by Nancy?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So in a typical semester, we have somewhere between 40 and 70 active members. It really depends semester to semester. And for the more technical events, we typically get somewhere around 25 to 30 people to those events. And for more relaxed social events, we typically get 15 or 20 people. So, but also that depends on the kind of event and whether or not exams are going on that week as well. And as we all know, EC exams can be tough, and some students really want to study as hard as they can.
All right, I have one other question that I want to pose to our panel, and that has to do with alumni. We've talked a lot about students networking with students, upperclassmen networking with lowerclassmen, students interacting and networking with faculty. Can you comment on how HKN has helped you connect with alumni? Any of you have good programs involving that sort of interaction?
So we haven't had too many alumni events in the past, but this semester we're trying to get some of the alumni to come back and have virtual meetings with students to talk about their experiences in the industry. And I think we're trying to have that sometime in the next couple of months or so. So that's something that we're trying an effort to start consciously doing, to invite more alumni back to our sessions.
Because I know we have at our chapter have occasionally had alumni panels, and it's actually been facilitated a little bit with the Zoom nature of a lot of our meetings that really let more alumni participate. And they've been career type panels where the alumni come in and talk about what in their career path has made them successful, how they made decisions, and those tend to be pretty well attended by our larger student body, and they've been organized by HKN. So this has been a really valuable activity for us and just making that connection. And the alumni seem to just love talking to students as opposed to maybe coming in and having another meeting with faculty. So they like that part.
Yeah, that's great, Steve. We see a lot of chapters reporting this. So maybe not the chapters that are with us on this panel, but I know a lot of other chapters are seeing a real growth in alumni. We call people our alumni that aren't current students, right? Because once you're inducted at a Kappa Nu, you're always at a Kappa Nu. So at a Kappa Nu is yours throughout your lifetime. I mean, I'll share a secret. Steve was the outstanding student of the year for ECE when he was a student. So he has a long history of Eta Kappa Nu. So Steve won one of those awards I was telling you about in the chat. Jennifer won the Outstanding Teaching Award. So certainly a lot of awards, but alum really do want to give back because they're you in their careers. They're all who you are today, students. They're the same. So the great thing is the nature of the Eta Kappa Nu person, right? This is someone who really does embrace that, wanting to give back and make their communities a better place. And, I love the induction ritual of Eta Kappa Nu. All of you, Eta Kappa Nu, you all took the pledge and went through the ritual. But it really talks about those heavy duty values. And I think that's why we share so much synergy with our departments and with our alumni, people who have been at Eta Kappa Nu, because we share a value set. And that's where ECEDHA and at Kappa also, we share a value set of, what's the future of engineering? What's the future for our members? How do we create that, those opportunities together? So I think it's really exciting. And, when we bring in, and if you're not doing alumni programs, I encourage you to think about them, to bring people back and talk about what it's like to go out in industry or be an entrepreneur, or, in the years after you leave college. It's inspiring, just like you inspire younger students when you go out and do community events. I mean, high schoolers, small, K through 12, gosh, don't they love to talk to other students? You inspire them in a way other people can't. But boy, I know our alum want to come back and inspire you in just the same way.
Comments from our panel on any of the questions we've talked about? We're kind of closing in on the last 10 minutes here, so I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to share the things that are their passion in their chapter.
I'll just echo the alumni. So we've really tapped into alumni networks to fill our speaker series this year. And actually the remote nature has made that a lot easier. So instead of them having to travel, we've done these Zoom panel sessions, and just echoing how exciting it is for students to hear back from students who are now doing such exciting things. And I think it's not only inspiring to them, but also give students an idea of, maybe we try to highlight students who take a different path than you might think of, just to get ideas for what can I do after graduation has been really fun as well.
Well, I have a good, perhaps closing question, depending on how much you all want to expand on this. But I'd like for each of you to kind of describe your HKN group in one word or phrase. What do you think of when you think of HKN as part of your experience in your various chapters? So Aaron, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I kind of think of us as being community service oriented first. And so everything we do on our campus is through that lens, whether that's helping students with their studying and, like I mentioned earlier, getting the undergraduate students interested, the networking opportunities with alumni and professors is something that I see as helping our EC department grow and expand. And specifically helping our students figure out what they want to do post-graduation, whether they want to go into industry, go to grad school, or things of that nature. And of course, the actual community service that we do with lives and fundraisers and volunteering at the Newburgh Children's Museum. Everything we do as the Gamma Theta chapter, in my opinion, is through the lens of community service. So that would be kind of where I would focus in on. We do these socials, we have a good time. It's not all work and no play. But even the things that we do for fun is meant to foster this community where you feel like you can go to people for help if you need it. And so in a way, we're still helping people, even if we're just having fun, playing video games, watching movies, all of these things. So that would be my phrase, I guess, would be community service.
And you've given me a great segue. When I started this panel session, I mentioned that all 4 of these chapters are award-winning chapters through HKN. They won the Key Chapter Award, they won the Outstanding Chapter Award, many of them multiple times. But what I didn't emphasize when I mentioned that is these award programs often revolve very much around service and what they give back, whether it's to the community or to the overall student body, or just to their members in the department. So when I say that these chapters are award-winning, it means they're award-winning in doing the things that reflect HKN values. And I think that's really important. Well, let's go on to Alan. Alan, tell us about what's your one word or phrase for describing your chapter there at Beta?
That's a really hard one. I'm tempted to go with community, but since Aaron already used that word in his phrase, I have to think of something else. I guess I would say maybe foundation, as almost everything we do runs through the lounge, and that's really kind of our foundation. Or service things originate from the lounge, or community activities also run through the lounge, and that really serves as a foundation for our department, I guess. Even something I forgot to mention is even during this COVID times, we still have people come and ask whether the lounge is open or not, and whether it's an available space. And so that really shows them how strong of a presence our Hkn is instilled in our ECE community.
It really is a hub for life in your department, at least student life then. So it really is a center there. So that's great. I can see why it's ranked so high on Google. Matthew, talk about the SI a little bit. How would you describe your HKN chapter in one word or phrase?
I think I have to steal Aaron's phrase with the service. We put a big emphasis on service in our pledging requirements and our active requirements. And this also relates to one of the questions I saw in the chat about community outreach programs. So UT hosts 2 big events in the spring. One is Girl Day, which is encouraged at getting a girls in STEM. So we have a little interactive demo that we put on. And this year it was virtual, but in the past it was like basically spinning a paperclip on a battery, and it's kind of fun. It's for aimed at younger kids, kind of getting them interested in a career or in pursuing a science, technology, engineering, math related field. And then the other that we do is called Explore UT, and this is university wide. And I actually went to Explore UT when I was in, I think, elementary school. And it kind of brings in kids from all over the state, and we run the same sort of activity there, but it's just kind of getting kids interested in attending UT and trying to be a little educational. So I found like great joy volunteering at those 2 events, and we have like that's probably our biggest volunteering events every year.
Yeah, Dr. Marley, I'll give you a choice of either talking about wherever you were initiated, how you think of that chapter, or talking about Valpo there.
Sure. So I will talk about Valpo, and I will echo the service-oriented mindset, but also the word that comes to mind for me would be welcoming. As a new faculty member, HKN was one of the first student organizations that reached out to me. And for me, it was a wonderful way to get to know the students that I would have in later semesters. And so I'm grateful for that. But also they look out for each other. So I see the HKN students in the hallways talking to the lower classmen, talking to their peers. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, they look for opportunities to welcome people, whether that's for laser tag or hide and go seek or things like that. And also welcoming, they're excited when faculty members join, for example, or there's just a great really drive to welcome people.
Yeah, it's so important there. So I think you're seeing a bit of a trend here and how people are responding to their chapters, through service, through involvement, through welcoming. I'll give a slightly different facet to that. When I think about my time as an undergraduate when I joined HKN, I think of the plaque that I had to do then. That was a networking activity where we made an HKN bridge plaque and got signatures. And as I've looked back at that plaque, it's really interesting just to look at some of the names on there and think that HKN was really one of my first, or perhaps the first way of introducing myself and getting to know some of these faculty that really had a strong influence on me as I went through my career. And who knows if I hadn't done HKN, if I'd had that strong connection to them. So I think that has been a real nice aspect of HKN, just that aspect of getting to know people and being part of that overall university community. Well, unfortunately, I think we're towards the end of our time here. So let me wrap up things a little bit. We got a closing slide here, just really emphasizing that we're the Honor Society of IEEE, and what does that mean? It means that we put an emphasis on scholarship, on character and attitude, both in inducting people and inviting them for membership, as well as the activities that go on in the chapter and how it, in the context of this presentation, how it influences student life in general, and how it really builds a lot of those peer-to-peer relationships, and that the impact that has in terms of service and so forth. If I had to do a list of what chapters provide, when I think of my own chapter and how I've seen it in other chapters, it's that formal recognition of academic accomplishment for both students. You can induct alumni, you can induct faculty, so it really kind of spans the range there. You have those service and service learning opportunities. You have the networking opportunities with faculty and student peers, and I can even add alumni here. And you've created that social community. So it really does have the option of contributing. I really love the title of the first section, where it's not just another student organization. And I think part of the reason for that, some of the things we've been discussing today. And here's a list of resource links. So if you're looking at this later on and want to find out more about how to start a chapter, how to restate a chapter, how to reconnect as alumni and get updates. I had the Bridge magazine highlighted on the prior slide. You can get that magazine electronically, and and see what's going on in the HKN world. We have our awards program, which is wonderful for students, for chapters, for teachers, all those different aspects. And we have our social community listed here as well. So that wraps up my panel, and I will invite Nancy to make any other closing comments. And I do want to thank my panel very much for their efforts in being part of this and in sharing their experiences with HKN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve and Dr. Watkins, and thank you, panel, Dr. Marley, Aaron, Alan, and Matthew. I mean, you really represent what's the best about EDHKN, right? I always say I don't have to speak if our students and members speak, because really you are, the students that are at EDHKN and who they become in their lives, how they, what they become and what they do in their lives speak for itself. It speaks to the value of EDHKN. And I really appreciate the department chairs for all their support, Steve, how you support your chapter and how you and everyone else and the department chairs on this program today. Because without the department chairs and the department's influence, it really is much harder to do. And I know that if some of you are not looking to achieve your goals through your EDHKN chapter, maybe you've been inspired to do so today. So thank you so much, panel, talking about community and how we've done that. It's been a wonderful, wonderful moment. So I'll go ahead and just want to wrap things up here for our program today, and really make sure we say thank you to ECEDHA, really for putting this program on with us. John Janowick, John is so supportive of EDHKN, and the board of ECEDHA is so supportive, and I can't thank John enough. But we also have with us, I'm going to invite him onto the conversation just a little bit for the closing. We have our 2021 president, Ron Jensen. Ron, if you just want to say a few words of appreciation to ECEDHA, to our panel, and maybe your thoughts about the session today, all the sessions today, and what we've been able to talk about here.
Will do. Yeah, this is my first interaction with ECEDHA, and I got to tell you, it was a terrific experience. I really appreciated it, and I really like the little equation that was on the last of Steve's charts. It said HKN plus ECEDHA equals success, and I think that that is really true. That partnership is obviously extremely important. We've heard from students, we've heard from faculty, we've talked a lot about relationships, we've talked about how we all support each other's interests and so on. And I'm just really impressed with it. And then that continual comment about service, the importance of service and why it's so important to HKN and how it's of value within each of the departments as well. I learned a lot, and I hope you did as well. And as Nancy said, thank you to the ECEDHA, thank you to the panel, the moderators and the panelists that got to answer all these questions, and just the fact that they were so capable of presenting means that they're the type of people that we're going to be looking forward to in the future, representing our interests and our technologies. So I really appreciate that. Thank you to all the attendees and for your questions and so forth. It's really just been great to hear from students, from faculty, from our own IEEE staff. Thank you to all of you for participating. And Nancy and Stacy, and from a staff standpoint, thanks for organizing this and taking us through a great session today. So thank you all.
Well, Ron, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I know you were here the whole day with us, the whole afternoon with us. So really appreciate you sticking in there and listening to the whole session. I hope all of you who attended got something out of this. Hopefully, at least you go home with one new idea. I always think if I get one new idea from a meeting I went to, or one new idea, something I can action in my own, for EDHKN, for my own life, and the organizations I volunteer with as well, I think I've really gained something. So I don't think it's possible for you to attend these sessions and not walk away with at least one nugget, one great idea of what you can do to go back and improve the engineering community with your university, to improve your EDHKN chapter, maybe to get additional skills for yourself to improve engineering education. I know ECEDHA and EDHKN very focused on the future of our students, on the future of our of our profession, the future of the disciplines we serve. So thank you so much for joining us today. Again, thank you to ECEDHA. And it's been my pleasure to be with you. And thank you so much. This will be available on demand. If you want to reach me, my email's right there on the screen. I've given you John's as well. You can reach out to both of us at our organizations. We'd love to answer questions and be a resource for you. So thank you so much. Thank you, Claire and Megan, the ECEDHA staff, who is amazing always. And I appreciate all of your work to pull this together, and our panelists. Great. Have a great day, everyone.